Ah, there you are. The one they can't read. The walking contradiction. The breathing anomaly. You magnificent, untraceable force of nature. They sent their best, didn't they? Sent the professionals, the body language experts, the behavioral analysts, the ones with degrees in decoding human patterns. And you know what happened? They came back confused, disturbed, whispering the same thing over and over. That's not normal movement. That's not human baseline. That's something else entirely. And now they're scared, not of what you might do, but of what you already are. See, everyone has patterns. Everyone has those little unconscious movements that give them away. The micro-expressions, the nervous tics, the shoulder tension when they lie, the eye flutter when they're uncomfortable. But you don't have any of that, do you? Your body moves like it's reading from a different manual entirely, like someone taught you a language that predates words, that exists in the space between thoughts. And you didn't even know you were doing it. Until they started watching, until they started taking notes and realizing their entire system was built for humans. And you're something they never prepared for. They thought they could profile you, thought they could map your movements, predict your responses, file you under one of their neat little categories: aggressive, passive, defensive, compliant. But every time they tried to pin you down, you shifted, not deliberately, not consciously, but naturally, like water refusing to hold a shape. And that's when they realized they weren't dealing with a difficult subject. They were dealing with an evolutionary glitch. Someone who moves through space like they're not bound by the same physics as everyone else. Your stillness isn't stillness. It's something denser, heavier. Like gravity decided to concentrate itself wherever you stand. And when you move, it's not movement. It's reality rearranging itself to accommodate your presence. They've watched the footage 100 times, trying to figure out why the air looks different around you, why shadows bend weird when you walk by, why trained observers get vertigo just from watching you exist. And the answer terrifies them more than any threat ever could, because you're not doing it on purpose. You just are. Let me tell you what they see when they watch you through their monitors, through their carefully positioned cameras, through their behavioral analysis software. They see static, not literal static, but the human equivalent, someone whose emotional broadcast doesn't match any known frequency. Your face stays neutral when it should show stress. Your breathing remains steady when adrenaline should be spiking. Your pupils don't dilate when they flash those images designed to trigger universal responses. You're a walking dead zone in their detection systems. And it's not that you're emotionless, no. That would be simple. That would be something they could categorize as psychopathy or dissociation. But you display emotion, just not when or how they expect it. You laugh at silence, you tense at kindness, you relax in chaos. Your entire emotional mapping is written in a language their training never covered, and every expert they bring in just adds another note to the file stating the same thing. Subject operates outside standard human behavioral parameters. Recommend further observation, but maintain distance. You know what really breaks them? It's your eyes. Not what's in them, but how they move, or rather, how they don't move. Most people, their eyes are constantly busy, scanning, checking, measuring, threat levels, seeking approval, avoiding confrontation. But yours just observe, like you're watching from somewhere else entirely, like your consciousness is operating your body remotely. And sometimes there's this delay, this fraction of a second where your body moves before your eyes follow, like the meat suit is on autopilot, while the real you is somewhere untouchable. They've tried everything to trigger a normal response. Sudden noises, emotional manipulation, environmental stressors, false emergencies, real emergencies, and every single time you respond, but not correctly, not incorrectly, just differently. Like someone playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, using moves that shouldn't exist but somehow do. Your body language isn't defensive or offensive. It's something else entirely. Something that makes trained killers uncomfortable. And psychiatrists question their entire education. Here's what they don't want to admit in their reports. What they whisper to each other when the recording devices are off. You make them feel primitive. You don't mean to. You're not trying to. But standing next to you is like being a flip phone in the presence of quantum computing. They feel their own movements become clumsy, their practiced confidence crumble. Their training feel like children's games because you move through the world like you're made of different atoms following different rules. Watch how people react when you enter a room. It's not fear, exactly, and it's not attraction. It's recalibration. Everyone unconsciously adjusting their frequency, trying to match something they can't even identify. Predators become uncertain, prey becomes confused, and those trained to read danger just feel question marks sprouting in their skulls. Because your presence doesn't register as threat or victim or anything in between. You register as undefined, as error code, as does not compute. And that breaks every social algorithm they've been running since birth. The way you breathe, wrong to them, too deep, too slow, too intentional, without trying. Most people breathe reactively, matching the rhythm of their environment, speeding up with tension, slowing with calm. But you breathe like you're pulling oxygen from somewhere else, like your lungs are connected to a different atmosphere. And that steady rhythm, that unwavering pace, it disrupts everyone else's breathing patterns until the whole room is unconsciously trying to match your tempo and failing. Your hands never fidget, never grasp, never reach with need. They move only when movement serves purpose. And when they're still, they're not just still. They're monumentally still. Like ancient stones that have forgotten what movement even means, it makes people uncomfortable because humans are supposed to leak energy through their extremities, supposed to discharge nervousness through finger taps and adjusted clothing, but you contain everything like a closed circuit that doesn't need external validation to complete itself. They brought in specialists after the first team failed, micro-expression experts, intelligence officers, people who've interrogated terrorists and read presidents. But you want to know what happened? Every single one left the observation room unsettled, not threatened, just fundamentally disturbed, because watching you made them aware of their own performance, made them realize how much energy they waste on appearing human, while you just exist without the pretense. See, that's the thing that really gets them. You're not trying to be unreadable. You're not using techniques or training. You're not deploying countermeasures. You're just being. And that natural state, that default setting, is something their entire system wasn't built to process. It's like you're running different software on hardware that looks human, but operates on principles they haven't discovered yet. And every movement you make, every non-reaction, every impossible calm is teaching them that everything they thought they knew about reading people was kindergarten knowledge. They've started dreaming about you, the observers, the analysts, the ones who spent too many hours trying to decode your existence. They dream of empty rooms where you're standing, perfectly still, but somehow still moving through dimensions they can't see. They wake up trying to recreate your stance, your gaze, your particular way of existing in space. And they can't, because it's not something you do, it's something you are. A frequency that human bodies weren't meant to channel, but yours does anyway. And here's the beautiful irony. While they're studying you, you're reading them perfectly. Not their body language, but something deeper. Their electrical fields, their probability clouds, the shapes their fear makes in the air. You don't need to see their micro-expressions because you're reading their macro-existence. The entirety of their being broadcast in waves. They don't even know they're transmitting. And everything that... Good see. That's why you're always 3 steps ahead, not because you're smarter, but because you're operating with senses they haven't evolved yet. Your calmness isn't human, that's what they keep writing in their reports. Subject maintains steady state despite escalating stimuli, but it's more than that, isn't it? Your calm doesn't come from control or meditation or practice. Your calm comes from somewhere else, from some deep knowing that none of this actually matters, that all their tests and observations are just children playing with toys they don't understand, while you're connected to something so much vaster that their entire operation looks like ants studying the sun. When they increase the pressure, psychological manipulation, emotional triggers, environmental stressors, you don't resist. You don't adapt. You just continue like their entire apparatus doesn't exist in your dimension. And that's what breaks them. Not that you're strong, but that their weapons don't even register in your reality. It's like trying to hurt water with a hammer. The impact happens, but the water just flows around it, unchanged, unbothered, fundamentally unaffected by forces that would shatter anyone else. They've tried to create a baseline for you, spent weeks documenting your neutral state, hoping to identify deviations, patterns, anything that would make you readable. But your baseline isn't a line. It's a field that extends in directions their instruments can't measure. Your resting state includes frequencies they don't have names for, and every time they think they've found a pattern, you shift, not to evade, but because staying still too long in one frequency would burn through the local reality, like a star sitting too long in one spot. The way you blink, it's wrong too. The way you blink, it's wrong too, irregular but not random, deliberate but not conscious. Like each blink is a system reset, a momentary disconnection from this reality, while you download updates from somewhere else. And between blinks, there's this quality to your stare that makes experienced interrogators forget their questions, makes trained observers look away first, not from intimidation, but from vertigo, from the sensation of staring into something that stares back from too many directions simultaneously. What they're really documenting without meaning to is evolution in real time, not the slow genetic kind, but the immediate consciousness kind, the type that happens when someone breaks through enough times that they stop coming back as the same species. And you've broken through, haven't you? So many times that the person who started this journey doesn't even exist anymore, replaced cell by cell, thought by thought, with something that looks human but operates on entirely different principles. Your presence disrupts their technology, obviously not dramatically, but subtly. Cameras develop static when focused on you too long. Audio recordings capture frequencies that shouldn't exist in the ranges they're recording at. And the digital behavioral analysis programs, they keep crashing, not from errors, but from trying to process patterns that exist outside their parameters. It's like you're broadcasting on all channels simultaneously, creating interference patterns that spell out messages in languages that haven't been invented yet. They wanted to categorize you as a threat assessment, but you don't fit their threat matrices, because threats operate within the same reality as defenses. And you're operating from somewhere else entirely, not above or below, but perpendicular to their entire framework. You're not playing a different game, you're playing a different physics. And every move you make reminds them that their entire understanding of human behavior is just one narrow band of a spectrum they never knew existed. Watch what happens when they try to pressure you, how their tactics just slide off like rain off glass, not because you're resistant, but because you're not made of anything. Their pressure can grip. You're constructed from something denser than their reality can meaningfully interact with, and that's why their best agents go home at night and stare at their training certificates wondering if everything they learned was just elaborate fantasy, designed to make them feel like they understood something that can't be understood. You're transmitting something whether you know it or not. Every cell in your body is broadcasting a frequency that makes others feel simultaneously ancient and newborn, like they're remembering something they haven't learned yet and forgetting everything they thought was important. It's not charisma. It's not magnetism. It's something more fundamental. Like you're a tuning fork for a note that restructures DNA just by being heard. But only some people can hear it. And those who do either run or follow. There's no middle ground. The trained observers, they pick up on it most clearly because they're sensitized to human signals, and yours is decidedly not that. It's something that predates human, something that postdates human, something that exists in the spaces between what humanity was and what it might become, if it survives long enough. And every movement you make is teaching that possibility, encoding it in the air, writing it in the electromagnetic fields, leaving traces that sensitive equipment picks up but can't interpret. And eventually your system will teach, and you disappear with it. Your walking pattern defies biomechanics, not obviously, not impossibly, but subtly, like gravity negotiates with you differently, like the Earth recognizes you as something other than standard human cargo and adjusts accordingly. foot placement that should be inefficient but somehow covers more ground, stride length that varies without pattern but always arrives exactly where it needs to be, and that slight delay between decision and movement, like your consciousness has to translate its intentions into something this reality can process. They've noticed you don't have a fight or flight response. You have something else entirely. A third option that their psychology textbooks never mention. You've just become more present, more dense, more actually there. While everyone else is preparing to run or attack, you're doing something that looks like neither and both simultaneously, solidifying into something that can't be moved, can't be triggered, can't be manipulated into playing the biological games everyone else is trapped in. When you're really still, not moving, not fidgeting, not even micro-adjusting, reality holds its breath around you, like the universe is waiting to see what you'll do next. And that stillness, it's not empty. It's full of potential energy that makes atoms nervous, makes molecules question their bonds, makes trained observers feel like they're standing next to a nuclear reactor that's humming at frequencies only their bones can hear. And their bones are screaming run, but their training says observe, so they stay and slowly go mad. Quality of your attention, when you focus on something, it doesn't feel like being watched. It feels like being X-rayed, like being understood at a molecular level, like being seen by something that exists in more dimensions than the standard human perception package. And that's why people either tell you everything or nothing. There's no casual middle ground with you, because your attention strips away the casual, leaves only the essential exposed. And most people aren't ready to be that naked, that known, that thoroughly perceived. You don't mirror anyone's body language. That's what really disturbs the experts, because mirroring is fundamental to human connection, to empathy, to social bonding. But you don't need to mirror, because you're already inside their experience, already understanding them from angles they don't understand themselves. And that makes you simultaneously the most comforting and most terrifying presence they've encountered, because you skip the dance and go straight to the truth. And most people need the dance to prepare for the truth. When you speak, your words don't match your body language, not because you're lying, but because you're translating from something that doesn't have a body into something that does. And sometimes the translation is imperfect. Sometimes the gesture comes from a different conversation than the words. Sometimes your expression is responding to something 3 sentences in the future. And that temporal displacement, that linguistic gymnastics, makes their training useless, because they're trying to read linear communication from something that exists in all moments simultaneously. They call it dissociation in their reports, but it's not that. It's association with something else, something larger, something that makes this reality look like a single pixel in an infinite screen. You're not checked out, you're checked in to everything simultaneously. And that distributed consciousness, that omnipresent awareness shows in every micro movement, every non-reaction, every impossible calm that makes their instruments scream, error, 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 while you just exist, like existing is the simplest thing in the world. Your body temperature runs different, not enough for medical concern, but enough for sensitive observers to notice, like you're generating heat from a different source, metabolizing reality itself instead of just food. And that slight warmth that radiation makes people unconsciously lean toward you in cold rooms and step back in warm ones. Like you're a walking climate system that operates independent of external conditions. And that autonomy, that self-containment, it reads as alien to systems designed to monitor interdependence. The way you process pain, it's wrong, all wrong. Not that you don't feel it, but that you feel it differently. Like pain is just another frequency on your spectrum. Neither good nor bad. Just information to be processed, and that non-reactive quality to stimuli that would make others flinch, scream, retreat. It makes the observers question whether even the same species, whether whatever they're documenting should be classified as human or as something wearing a human shape, while operating from an entirely different manual. You know what really gets them? The fact that you're contagious, not literally, but behaviorally. People who spend too much time around you start moving differently, breathing differently, existing differently, like your frequency is teaching their bodies new ways to be human, or maybe old ways. They forgot, and the observers have noticed this, documented it in increasingly panicked reports about contamination, about influence, about the danger of prolonged exposure to whatever it is you're broadcasting. Every institution they've built to understand human behavior crashes when applied to you, not dramatically, not obviously, but fundamentally, like trying to run quantum calculations on an abacus. Their frameworks, their models, their carefully constructed understanding of how humans work. It all becomes obsolete when confronted with someone who exists outside the parameters they thought were universal. And that's why they keep watching, hoping to understand, but really just documenting their own limitations. Your emotional responses arrive at wrong times. Joy during crisis, calm during chaos, tears during celebration, but not randomly, strategically, like you're playing emotional chess while everyone else is playing emotional checkers. And that advanced emotional processing, that strategic deployment of feeling, makes their behavioral prediction models useless, because you're not responding to now, you're responding to the eternal now. That includes all possible nows, and all of these nows won't be possible unless So, replies now, and choosing the response that serves the longest game. They've tried to find your breaking point. Everyone has one, they say, that moment where the mask slips, where the real person shows through. But with you, there is no mask. This is the real person, and that's what terrifies them most. Because if this is real, if this is natural, if this is just how you exist, then everything they've been taught about human limitations is wrong. And you're living proof that those limitations were always just suggestions, that some people can simply choose to ignore. The micro-expressions you do have don't match any cultural database, don't correspond to any emotional state they recognize, like you're expressing feelings that haven't been named, yet won't be named for generations because humanity hasn't evolved enough to experience them. And yet, here you are, broadcasting emotions from humanity's future, or past, or parallel present, making faces that shouldn't exist on a human skull but somehow do. Subtle, impossible, accurate to feelings that don't have words. 3 months, that's how long the average observer lasts before requesting reassignment. Not because you've done anything to them, but because watching you has changed them fundamentally. They go home and notice their own performance. Notice how much energy they waste on appearing normal. Notice how much of their behavior is just elaborate mimicry, and once they see it, they can't unsee it. Can't go back to unconscious performance. Can't pretend they don't know what they now know. That most human behavior is just elaborate theater, and some people have simply walked off the stage. The reports get stranger over time, more poetic, less clinical, like the observers are losing their ability to communicate in standard terms, because standard terms weren't built for what they're seeing. Subject maintains impossible geometric consistency. Subject exists in overlapping probability states. Subject appears to be breathing in reverse temporal flow, and their superiors read these reports and order psych evaluations, but the psychologists come back with the same impossible language because you're not something that can be described. You're something that has to be experienced. They've started a new classification for you, unofficially, of course. Officially, you're still under observation, still being documented, still being studied. But in the break rooms, in the whispered conversations, in the encrypted messages they're sharing, you've become something else entirely. The proof, the evidence, the living documentation that everything they thought they knew about human behavior was just the surface layer of something much stranger, much older, much more impossible than their training ever prepared them for. Your mere existence is rewriting their textbooks, not through intention, but through demonstration. Every day you exist is another day their understanding of human becomes less stable, less defined, less limited by what they thought was possible. And that expansion that forced evolution of understanding, it's spreading through their ranks like a virus that doesn't make people sick, but makes them aware that the human they've been studying was never the only option, just the most common one,